Well, blessed 10th day of Christmas. We come to you on Wednesday. It is January 3rd, and we are still in the Christmas glow. While the world around us might still sense that they are in the Christmas afterglow, we are in the midst of celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. But one of the things that we're called to do is work on the spiritual rather than the secular. We give presents, we give solid gifts to people, yes, but we are to talk about the gift of Jesus Christ. Jesus multiplies the bread for the people. We're going to have a few days in John 6, but it is the spiritual benefits that Jesus brings us. And so we got two examples of Jesus's kingship that we need to look at in John 6. So we're going to start with John 6, verse 15, and continuing on through 21 as we go through this passage. When Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force and make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. Jesus had just gotten done doing the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000. When evening had come, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now darkness, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough, and because a strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, he saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat, and they were terrified. But he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." They wanted to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the land toward which they were going. Now, there are two things going on here that need to be addressed. First of all, making Jesus king. Jesus is already king. He's king from his birth. He's born into David's royal family. But he's going to be the King of kings and the Lord of lords, the King of many nations, not just the nation of Israel. And that's one thing to keep in mind here. Israel, in fact, rejected him as king, he rejected him as Messiah. But there was a remnant who received him. In fact, it might be said that there's a remnant of every nation that received him as the king and as Lord. And so it is important to remember that this is not just Jesus for some nations, this is Jesus for all nations. The bread is not just given to some people, it's given to all people. The disciples were sent out to be the 12 baskets, to give the bread to the nations. And that bread would be Jesus. But he would not be placed as king by human means. It was not his time. In fact, he would be enthroned upon the cross, where he gave and gives his bread and his wine, his body and his blood, for the sake of all nations. And to show that he is in charge of not just all nations, Jesus walks on water, to show that he is above the water. That goes back once again to creation. John 1 really focuses on Jesus being the word that God speaks. And so it is, Jesus, even in his human form, is able to walk over the water, hover over the chaos, just like the Spirit does at the beginning of creation. Jesus is able to multiply bread. Jesus is the Lord of creation. Now, the disciples are concerned. They want him in the boat. In some ways, we're not sure in this passage whether it's because they were afraid or they're afraid for Jesus. But obviously, Jesus is taking care of himself. Now, there's some interesting differences at this point in the other Gospels. Jesus walks on water just before they go out into foreign land on the other end of the Sea of Galilee, or the Sea of Tiberias, as we have this story. But in this story, Jesus goes back to his main headquarters, so to speak, when he was in his earthly life. He goes back to Capernaum, which is still on the same side of the sea here. While we may have to wrestle with which Jesus did or did not do, the key point is that Jesus is more than a man. The one born in Bethlehem is more than just a prophet who comes like the prophets of old. He comes as the Lord of the universe, the one who walks on water, the one who is able to multiply bread by his very voice, if not his very presence. Jesus is the Word of God, and whether or not we make him king, he still is king. He still is the King of Kings. He still is the Lord of Lords. He is the one we celebrate this season. And He's the one who will shine our light into this new year. And so we are called to celebrate that light. Invite Him into our boat, but more importantly, have Jesus guide the ship to the shores that we are called to go to. We have the 12 baskets of bread that we saw Jesus multiply in the previous episode. And so we are called to spread that news, to spread that bread. And we are to look at the spiritual rather than just the physical. It is a beautiful time of the year for us to put up lights, to exchange gifts. I know as a child, Christmas was always that time, and it continues to be. I know for many adults, I hear that from you when you tell me about how special Christmas is. But following Christ is more than just a season of the year, it is an all time thing. And if we want to keep the message of Christmas alive, we not only need to celebrate with the lights and the exchanging of the gift and maybe even a Christmas tree or whatever we do to honor the traditions of the season, we need to follow Jesus in the boat. We need to make sure if he's not in our boat, he's guiding our boat. Because he's the one that not only is just the King of Israel, but he's the King of the universe and walks upon the chaos and the waters of the sea. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement. Happy 10th day of Christmas. We'll see you next time.